Number one of the biggest problems we have, we don't even know who wrote it. We know God did, but we don't know who put the pen on the paper. Okay, most of it, if you look at the Song of Solomon, over the first half of it is written by a woman, or from a woman's point of view. So I don't think it's a man speaking from a woman's point of view, but it does come from a woman. We just don't know who it is. And when the man does speak, it definitely doesn't sound like Solomon, because everything the man does and says, Solomon failed at. So it doesn't sound like him at all. So this is the reason why it's relevant, and then I'll try to tell you why I don't think it's being taught of a lot. Number one, and this kind of goes back to what Kim said, our American culture thrives on secular, sexual ideologies, which has absolutely corrupted more than they benefit, and they cause much more harm than they help. Half of all marriages, half of them end in divorce. Now, I was talking to Kim about this, and I said, I want you to look at this, because I want you to tell me if I'm looking at this correctly. So everybody kind of look at my visual here. This is a number of marriages right now, 2024 in August, okay? So this is the number of marriages. How many of these marriages, what's the percentage of the marriages, how many of them end up in divorce? Does anybody know? No, don't guess. Does anybody know? Half. It bounces around between 49, 50, and 51. How many of you know what that number is for Christians?
Same.
Half. It's still half. Okay, but follow me here, because this is really important. If this is the total number of marriages, that means that half of them ended in divorce. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so let's forget about this half. Let's look at this half. So does that mean that everybody on this side is wonderfully happy, and there's birds and love stories and picking flowers and then, but when you hit the 50% mark, then it's terrible, it's awful, nobody wants to get married, it's the worst mistake of my life. Is that how it works?
No.
No. So what does that mean is the people who are married, that means that some of them, at the very end of this, are right on the brink of divorce. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Hello, are you with me?
Yeah.
Because this is really important. Okay, so if it's a degradation of marriage, of happiness, let's say, I'm not talking about hedonism like Kim was talking about. I'm just talking about, this is one of the best moves I have ever made in my life, is to get married to that woman or to get married to that guy. So when we have this half over here, from absolute beautiful, love it, this is the greatest thing ever happened to me, and as we continue and go toward that 50% mark, it gets worse and worse and worse. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So how many of this, in the 50% mark, how many of these people are like right on the verge of divorce? They can't stand being married, but they're currently married right now. How much of these people are there? We don't know, because there's no statistical information. Leave it up to your imagination. Whatever, is it half of this half? Is it a quarter of the people are on the brink of divorce? I don't know, but think about that. So when I say half the people are ready to be divorced, there are some right on the verge of it, and they just haven't done it yet. So that means, and I'm just speaking off the top of my head as a guess, that means only 1/4 of all marriages are really good. That means 3/4 of most marriages are not good at all. Which actually begs the question, why? Why? Why are so many marriages so horrible? Song of Solomon. We don't know, because like Carla said, we never talk about it. And like Kim said, if we would talk about it, if we would adhere to what it said, if we were very careful to the things that it talks about, we would find out what God... It's like I said before, if you put diesel fuel into a gasoline-powered engine, it wouldn't run very well. And that's what we do in our bodies. We were designed, Psalm 139, we were designed to run a particular way. Okay, God set us up to run just like this. But if we pour the wrong fuel into it, we're not going to run well. And marriages are going to collapse because the families are going to collapse. That's what I'm trying to say here. They're like what Jude spoke of in Jude verse 10. He said that they speak evil of whatever they don't know, and whatever they know naturally, like brute beasts. In these things they corrupt themselves. Wow, he's 100% right. Did you know that for generations upon generations, do you know what the number one cause of divorce used to be? Money. Now it's just in the top 3. Now the number one reason why people get divorced is because they're not committed to one another. They're committed to themselves, which is not what God said. Couple that with the degradation of morality in today's society, and it's not really known what marriage is supposed to be like. People don't know how to be married. They don't know how to have a spouse because they're uninformed. This inspired book, the Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs actually is what it's called. It uncovers the truth about how husbands and wives are supposed to share what exactly happens in a marriage. How do we know what's supposed to happen in a marriage? Read the Song of Solomon. That's how you're not going to find out any other way. Now, the Song of Solomon contains, if you ever read it, you'll know that it has a lot of sexual imagery. It really does, and it's kind of graphic. And it would shock a lot of readers, and that's why preachers stay away from it. Because it shocks people, and they don't want to hear stuff like that. Why don't they want to hear stuff like that? What does God say about that?
He says it's good.
He put it in His Word.
In the marriage.
It's a marriage.
Yeah.
And that it's not good, it's beautiful. We corrupted it. That's why it's embarrassing.
Like
Because
being naked in the garden.
the what?
Like being naked in the garden.
What's wrong with that? And the Bible says they were naked and they were not what? Ashamed. Caleb nailed it. That's 100% right. There was nothing wrong with that. We look at that and go, whoa, dude. It's because we've corrupted it. It's the language that God uses is tasteful. It's poetic. It's very picturesque. We're just not used to it. In fact, this book reveals love as something that shouldn't be taken casually. And I was reading something that someone said, and I kind of paraphrase it, but I'm going to read to you this sentence because I want you to listen to what I'm saying, because this was very good. I never even thought about this. This book reveals love as something that shouldn't be taken casually because it can destroy if used wrongly. But it's better than life itself if its value is recognized and cherished. Well spoken. I like that. I made sure to put that in my notes. So what we have, in a kind of a response to what Carla was asking, is we have a number of love poems. And they're not put in any rigid order. They're not put in any compartmentalized. So we can't really take it and put it in categories and preach about this and that. You read it like a journal from the beginning to the end, like one big long story. And you don't parse the verbs, you don't analyze it. And here's why. The Song of Solomon was not written theologically, which is another reason why preachers don't preach it. Most preachers, like myself, I love theology. And I want to go into exactly how these things work. But that doesn't apply to the Song of Solomon. However, you can't read the Song of Solomon casually. You're forced to read it slowly. Does anybody know why?
It's hard to follow.
Well, that's one of the reasons. But why is it hard to follow? It is considered, and I told this to Kim the other day, and she didn't know this. And to be honest with you, I didn't know it either. This book is actually considered to be one of the books of wisdom, like Job and Ecclesiastes and the book of Proverbs. And it provides much needed wisdom from God on love and what marriage is. And this knowledge, this wisdom is not attainable outside of Christ. He's the only one that can give that because marriage was created by him. And God ordained it. It was one of the first institutions he ever gave. Now listen to this. This is the part that I thought was really cool. In the entire book, and this is probably my last reason, Carla, why most preachers don't preach on it, is you know how many times the Lord is mentioned in the Song of Solomon? Once. In the entire book, chapter 8, verse 6, is the only time the Lord is actually referred to by name. But even though, did you know that on Passover, Orthodox Jews consider this to be one of the most sacred of all books, and it will be read on Passover from beginning to end. And it is considered, to me, the most sacred. Now, check this out. I did not understand this, so I looked it up and validated it. How many of you know what the Tanakh is? It's 25 books, and it's the Torah. Just think of the T for Torah, the Nevi'im, or the prophets, the N from that, and the K of Ketuvim, or the writing. So you have the T, the Torah, the Nevuim, and the Ketuvim, which is the T, N, and K, the Tanakh. Remember, the Hebrews don't use vowels. So it's Tanakh to be actually, if you want to write it correctly. But most, if not all, the Jews view the Song of Solomon as, like Kim was saying, it's like Christ's relationship with the church, but it also has to do with the deliverance of his children from Israel. But perhaps one of the best reasons, and I'm going to wind it down with this, if you read the book, if you've ever read the book, you will know that you have a man and a woman, and they're constantly running off. She runs off usually, but sometimes he does. And so when she runs off, he pursues after her. When she runs off, or when he runs off, then she pursues him. And it's a book of constantly back and forth. They're trying to look for each other, and they find each other. And when they do, it's this great thing, and they celebrate as one of the greatest things. And this is why the Jews think that this is their relationship with God, and why the relationship with the church. Because think about it, in the Old and New Testament, and even today with you and I, isn't that what we do? I mean, think about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, what's the first thing they did after they sinned?
Ran away.
They ran off. And what did God do? He
Yeah.
pursued. Adam, where are you? We see that in the Song of Solomon over and over and over and over again. So this is much like his relationship with his people. So it teaches man and a woman how God created this special, this very unique kind of relationship where a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his life, and they shall become one flesh. The reason why I'm saying that is because no other relationship can get that close as a man and a woman becoming one, except for one. What other relationship supersedes that? What?
Our relationship to Christ.
And why do you say that? He said it. He's in us. He is in us. He will never leave or forsake us. That's amazing. That is amazing. The last thing I'm going to say is the writer of Hebrews seems to summarize this entire book. Listen to what he wrote in Hebrews 13:4. Marriage is to be held in honor among all. The marriage bed is to be undefiled. For fornicators and adulterers, God will judge. That encapsulates